In August 1914, two young brothers, John and Daniel Todd, walked from a small mining village near West Boldon to Newcastle to answer the call to arms for king and country, and enlisted in the Northumberland Fusiliers. These boys were my grandmother's young brothers, my great-uncles. After joining the regiment and a short spell of training, John was shipped out to Gallipoli, where he fought in suicidal conditions and was wounded. He was transferred onto a hospital ship to recuperate on board and was then deployed to Alexandria, where they took over a section of the Suez Canal defences. Then, in early 1916, he was transported to France to engage in active service on the Western Front. His regiment was so depleted, those left were attached to the 6th Dorsetshire Regiment, and he saw action with them in many battles, including Ypres, various actions on the Somme, and the Battle of Arras, where he was blown up in April 1917. His body was never found. He is commemorated on the Arras Memorial. 19-year-old Daniel transferred almost immediately into the Tyneside Irish, and so the brothers' service took a slightly different route. Daniel was shipped to northern France and was often engaged in the same major battles on the Western Front in which his brother fought. Sometimes fighting within a few miles of each other, they were able to keep in touch. He was devastated at the news of his older brother's death and vowed in a letter to his family to do his utmost to avenge it. Towards the end of 1916, Daniel was wounded and repatriated for a few weeks, and whilst home, he married his childhood sweetheart. A few months later, she wrote to tell him he was to be a father. He didn't live to see Daniel, his son, as in August 1917, just 4 months after his brother's death, Daniel was seriously wounded at the Battle of Haguenau near Gavrelle and was moved to a casualty clearing station 12 kilometres away in Villers-Faucon, where he died 5 days later in a field ambulance. He is buried in the small village cemetery there. This is the story of John and Daniel, just two of the millions who lost their lives in this terrible conflict. As their parents and siblings were never told exactly where they had fallen, almost 90 years later, after much research, my husband and I travelled to France and we were able to pay our respects on their behalf. We were so moved at the sheer scale of the loss and sacrifice of these men and that of their parents and families that each Armistice Day since we have placed 2 small crosses at the foot of our village sign in their memory and in memory of all those who lost their lives or were wounded in such dreadful conditions on the Western Front and in all conflicts since the First World War. The price they paid so that we could live in freedom should never be forgotten.